Well, great. Well, thank you and welcome and good morning. I give you all a lot of credit for showing up this early today after the fun couple days we've had here at Future Proof and last night the concert. So thanks again for being here. I think you may know that I film a podcast called The Big Reveal, and so we're going to be shooting this live. So here we go. So welcome to season 3 of the Big Reveal podcast series. I'm Suzanne Siracuse, and I am so excited to be back for season 3. This season is a little bit different because we are kicking it off live at this new phenomenal conference called Future Proof. It's taking place in Huntington Beach, California, outside, and it's pretty amazing. If you can see behind me, that is really the ocean, and if you're just listening to audio, maybe you can hear the waves in the background. I'm also excited to announce that this year I have a new partner, Invent, and we're going to learn a little bit more about them today. And finally, I want to thank Envestnet, and especially Bill Krager, who has been my partner for seasons 1 and 2 and really helped me get the Big Reveal off the ground. I will never forget your support of my idea of hosting a podcast on my own, so thank you again to Envestnet. And so now, to kick off season 3, I am joined by the one, the only, Oleg Tiskevich, who is the founder and CEO of Invent, a firm that provides integrated digital ecosystems, we're going to find out what that is, by the way, to RIAs, broker-dealers, and asset managers. Prior to founding Invent, Tiskevich founded Finance Logics, a next-generation financial planning software company, which he sold to, ironically, Envestnet in 2015. Oleg is an expert and industry leader on all things wealth tech and data, but he's also a serial entrepreneur, and we're going to talk a bit about that today. So welcome, Oleg, and thank you so much for being here today to kick off season 3 of The Big Reveal. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your story and to discuss all things data, technology, and innovation. So I want to start off with the fact that Invent was just named to the prestigious Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies list. I believe you were number 885. Tell us a bit more about your firm and why and how it's taken off so quickly.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me on the podcast. We appreciate the support and really excited about Big Reveal series. We watched the first 2 seasons and hope the third one is just as exciting as the previous ones.
And it will be.
So just a little bit about Invent. I started the company basically out of a challenge that I saw in the industry. My previous business, Finance Logics, we had 40 plus different integration partners. And every time advisors calls in and say, well, how come my data is not coming from Redtail to Finance Logics to Orion to all this stuff? So literally 25% of our developers' time was spent fixing those issues with integrations even after we developed them. So I thought, what if I could just snap a finger and solve the integration problem for the industry altogether? So that's how we got started. Turned out to be it's not an easy task to do. It's not snapping the fingers. So 5 years later, we're still working on it. But I think we made some tremendous progress. And what we realized is that to really solve this problem, we can't just build bridges between different systems, right? Because it's kind of like a duct tape solution. They don't really work very well. They're point to point. They're not robust enough. And really, there's no kind of a party in the middle to make sure that all this stuff actually works well. So advisors are stuck sometimes, creating those solutions themselves. So we decided to solve this by reimagining how this could work all together. And we decided that the solution for it really is creating an ecosystem where every participant, whether it's a CRM, financial planning, or any kind of software company, is able to participate in that ecosystem and build and publish applications or micro apps so that advisors can kind of merge them together.
So kind of like an Apple store for advisors.
Exactly. Or I would say, if you think about Pinterest, you clip pictures from different places. You create a board of various different pictures, imagine clipping different parts of the applications, a little bit of a new account workflow, the notes from a CRM, or the risk score from a risk software, and then just creating a board for your client or for your operations team or for your executive team. So it's actionable components that you can drag and drop and create the experiences for unlimited number of users.
That's really cool. And so why do you think, how did you land on the fastest growing companies list? Because that's really impressive. There's so many companies out there. What made, what is it, the demand out there for what you're creating?
Sure. So first of all, I had a lot of learning. So I actually started about 7 different companies, and you only know about 2 of them because the founders never tell you about the ones that kind of didn't work out, right? So you have to do a lot of practice. The second company after Finance Logic's, second in a row was basically Invent, and it's always easier for the second time, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So that's part of the story. But I think why we were able to grow that fast is because we really wanted to focus on the clients, on advisory firms and broker-dealers and asset managers that want to grow. So I said, if there's a firm out there, they say, hey, I want you to kind of figure out how do we connect, Money Guide Pro to Salesforce. Can you guys do this? And that's great. I'm not sure we want to work with that firm, right? We focus on firms that say, I'm at 100 million right now, 100 million under management right now. I want to grow to be a $2 billion company. What do I do to create a platform for my RIA or my broker-dealer to really take me to the next level, so I can accommodate any other company coming in that I acquire or merge with, that I can facilitate growth without having to put bodies on it, put more people, and increase my expense. So by focusing on companies that really focus on growth, we pretty much grew with them. So that's a simple formula, but actually pretty effective.
That's a really smart strategy, right? So if you want to grow fast, make sure that the clients that you want to work with are in that growth mode and mindset as well. So that's pretty great advice. So the last time that we saw each other in person prior to this event, we were at the T3 conference in May, and you were on stage doing a presentation, and you said something that got a lot of attention, and that was data is the new gold. So why is data so critical for our industry, and especially for firms and advisors?
Data in general is kind of the heartbeat of your business. It contains all the insight, all the information about what's happening with your business, and be able to mine that data and get those insights and make better decisions based on the data that you have on your clients, on your staff, on your operations is essential to be a successful growing company. So today, we're in a situation where the data is spread out across multiple different systems, applications, and it's funny, we started with everybody back in the day having a desktop. All the data was on the same machine. You just install the application, you kind of keep it all together, and then that kind of evolved to going web-based software, going to finally cloud, that we have to give up kind of custody of that data, right? So we say, okay, we're going to trust these SaaS companies. They're going to have all our data, right? We just will have just access to the actual software to use the data, but we don't have access to the actual data. And I think now what's happening is there's a kind of a reverse on the next spiral. There's going to be what's happening is another kind of iteration of going back to be able to have the ownership of the data, which is very important. But not just data. Having the data is not enough. Oftentimes advisors are like, okay, well, I got all my data, I'm done, checked, now things are going to happen, everything's going to be great, right? That's a bit of a misconception, because having the data and even having the insights driven off of the data is not enough. You also need to be able to have the experience for each one of the participants within your enterprise or within your RIA, or even if you're a 5 or 10 people shop, right? To be able to leverage various different applications and workflows that leverage that data in effective ways. So they're not retyping that data in multiple places, or they're looking in 5 5 different screens with 6 different monitors. Like, that's not very effective, right? So as you think about growth, the easiest thing to do is just have one app that does everything for you, like the big companies do, right? The Morgan Stanleys, the Bank of Americas, they all create a single desktop for every different participant within the wealth management life cycle. And that takes, obviously, a lot of people, a lot of time, and millions and millions of dollars to build, right? So what we're trying to do is bring that capability and scale it so it's not as lengthy, it's not as expensive, and we can get that capability that the big firms were able to kind of enjoy over the couple of decades now, right? To the RIA market, to the independent market. So you guys can compete a little bit better with some of those firms, not just on value and fiduciary and other great value propositions, but also have a better tech.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a great explanation. I never really thought about giving up the data to the SaaS companies and now reclaiming it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great takeaway from this conversation so far. So currently there are over 17,000 advisors utilizing your platform through their various broker-dealers and RIAs. And in fact, advisors, you may be using the nVent platform and not even know it. So what have you seen in terms of advisor adoption of technology? Overall, we know it increased during COVID, of course, but what are some of the reasons and techniques that you see are actually working on increasing advisor adoption of the many tech solutions that are out there?
Well, first of all, if you're a technology provider and you want advisors to adopt your software need to adapt to the way advisors do business. That's the only way to increase adoption. And if you think about this, as many software vendors out there, the way they build software, oftentimes, it's kind of in the back room, maybe figuring out, okay, I have this great idea, I'm going to create this, I'm going to get it to the market, and then it kind of hits the market, and you start talking to actual customers, right? And they're like, well, this is great, but this not so much, right? And so a lot of these firms are going through a lot of kind of iterations of adjustments and kind of market fit, and that takes a long time. So some of the advice that I would give is really spend more time actually talking to advisors, as if you're a software vendor or if you're an RIA, participate actively with your vendors. They do want your feedback. And I think that's one of the things that is a bit missing in our industry is there's a lot of great feedback that we've gained just by talking to advisors, before actually building anything.
Yeah, a lot of times you see that, and how many has this happened to the people that are here in the audience today, where a technology company creates something without getting the use case and without getting the input from advisors, and it's just not even usable, right? Yep. So you're saying make sure that if you work for a broker-dealer or your custodian or technology companies that you're doing business with, make sure that they're getting your opinion, how you're actually using the software. I think that's really important. One thing too, in terms of an actual example, is that we had talked about prior, is really addressing some advisor pain points. And you were going to talk about something around actionable alerts. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So we did an implementation for a large broker-dealer, and as part of that process, we did what's called UX research. So we created a prototype of the future system. That's another great technique to kind of figure out what the software system might look like. You can kind of touch and feel it, but it hasn't been built. It's just a lot of clickable kind of experiences that you can go through and see and feel if that makes sense. So we built that kind of a prototype, which obviously took a lot less. It took us probably a few weeks to get that out. And then we had about 50 different RIAs that actually played with it and gave us feedback. And what's amazing is that we actually found out that one of the features that was missing from that prototype was the idea is advisors have a lot of different things on their plate, right? Account opening workflows, account servicing workflows, proposals, financial planning. All these different systems have various different workflows that are in flight. So be able to see all the information in one place as things happen with different systems, and getting an alert on the client level, on the household level, on the account level for the specific system that has to do, let's say you have a NIGO when you're trying to open an account for an important client, right? Some of you have multi-custodian systems, right? So wouldn't it be great to have everything in one place where, from Fidelity, say, and Schwab, all the alerts are coming in this actionable alerts section, and basically be able to click a button and go directly and fix the problem. That was actually the feedback that we found out from those interviews. And as it turns out, we deployed the system, now it's used by 11,000 users. It's one of the most used feature as we look at the analytics, right? That's what advisors wanted to have, and that majority of them basically said that's what we want. So we implemented it. That was very successful.
That's wonderful. Well, see, it just shows you've got to talk to the user and get their feedback before you launch anything. What advice do you have for financial service firms and advisors that are still maybe a bit reluctant to completely embrace technology? What would you say to them?
So I completely understand, RIAs that focus on client relationships. It's very important to have, to build the practice and to have the right relationship with the client, and really, focus on that personal connection to the clients. It's extremely important. But as you think about the growth, as you think about succession, as you think about all these different kind of aspects of your business, it's important to be able to spend more of that face time and less fixing out an issue of, this system not talking to this system, or, I'm preparing for a client meeting, I can't pull up my, performance report because we couldn't pull it in from whatever performance software into the system that we're using internally, right? Like those types of operational challenges really bog down on the time that advisors have to spend instead of talking to a client, figuring out and managing their operations and et cetera. So if you think about growth and be able to service more clients, technology is what is able to help you to scale that business and spend less time in the back office and more time actually in the front of the client, and hopefully helping more clients, because what you do is so important. And I think we need to have at least 10 times more advisors in America to be able to really service this market. We're not even touching that. But in order to make it scalable, in order to make it feasible and profitable, technology is the way to really scale that business so you can help more people.
Yeah, absolutely. And to serve more people, right? Yep. So I think that's another important thing. You're seeing a lot of platforms come up nowadays that are really trying to be able to serve the underserved market, the people that really need financial advice that don't have access to it now. So I think that technology is going to play a huge role there. So Oleg, you are really, in my opinion, the definition of an innovator. Much of what you do and have created throughout your career required thinking differently about things and creating solutions that didn't exist. That really is, quite frankly, the definition of innovation. So in recognizing that you see things differently and at many times before they happen, what big trend do you see coming, impacting our industry that no one sees coming?
So we're going to talk about the future, right? I love talking about the future. We're at the future proof. So if you think about your business, and kind of to the point that I was talking about earlier, a lot of the time that advisors spend are really on, like, you're here looking at all these software vendors. Why? Why are you here looking at software vendors, right? If your goal is to help more people and really talk about advice with your clients and help them retire better, get protection to, make sure that their assets last, right? Why are you here talking about technology and trying to figure out your tech stack? It should not be something that you are doing. It should just be done for you, right? So I believe that the future holds a new breed of software companies that would build software that is fully pre-integrated at birth. So you don't have to worry about, well, I really like this tool, I like that tool. It'd be like, the experience that you saw in Tom Cruise movie, where he.
Minority Report.
Yes, exactly. Where he just standing in front of the screen and just drags and drops different things and creates a new kind of analytics or experiences with just hand gestures, right? I mean, maybe that's a bit of an extreme, but the idea of having software that is automatically pre-integrated from any vendor that you can mix and match, taking different pieces from each one of those, I believe that's the future, and that's really going to solve your problem of like not ever thinking about creating a flexible, scalable solution that is highly personalized to your business to underline your value proposition to your clients.
So I think that's fascinating and smart, and sometimes we can't even imagine the things that that are unimaginable right now, right? So the fact that you can think about it in that respect, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Advisors, you're not technology experts, and nor should you be, and go into the business to do that, yet you're having to be. And so if that can be created, I'm sure you're working on that, then I think that would be an amazing solution all the way around. So we'll see, we'll check back next year, see if you're right. So what top takeaway or lesson do you have to share today on what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, which you are?
Thank you. I have to maybe refer to not my thought on this one, but I spent, as you mentioned, I spent quite a bit of time working at Investnet after I sold my company as an executive there, and had an opportunity to spend some really quality time with Judd Bergman, the late CEO of Investnet, and I've gained so much of interesting insight and wisdom from just very brief conversations with him. Like I would bring in a great ideas, like with this great company, they do this and this, the really cool technology. We should really look at this. We should maybe acquire, right? And Judd would say, Oleg, do they have users? Do they have revenue? I'm like, no, Judd, but this is a great tech. It's amazing. It's really something that's going to take off. Oleg, I got two questions. Do they have users? Do they have revenue? So it's simple stuff like this, but it really keeps you focused. And to be honest with you, no matter how the great idea could be, at the end of the day, it's about users and revenue. So it's a simple advice, but that's what kind of helped me build my business. Anytime you try to get distracted with the next great, best thing that you think is going to change the world, are you going to attract users and revenue?
I love it. Oh God, and Judd was such a brilliant and kind business person, and sometimes you just have to fall back on common sense, right? And we all get distracted by the bells and whistles, but what's the foundation look like? And I think that's what he was probably trying to say to you. On Sunday, when Future Proof opened, you were on a fascinating panel, and you spoke about something that really resonated with me, and it was thinking about your tech strategy as part of an overall risk management strategy relating to succession planning. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So as there's a lot of conversation about succession in the business. There's a lot of companies that kind of build their businesses around helping advisors with succession. I mean, I get it. It's partially kind of like a personal, almost like a shrink type of a conversation, right, with the different members of the team, right? But on the flip side, it's also, in my opinion, it's really a conversation about risk. And it's not just about succession of the owner of the company. It's really any key employee that you have within the business. You need to worry about succession. If you think about succession from a business perspective, it's really a conversation of risk to the business, right? So what constitutes that risk to the business is like what happens of one person knowing a lot of information about the business if that person leaves. I had a personal case with my own company, with Finance Logics. We had this brilliant guy who built a financial planning engine for us. Brilliant coder, right? He worked with me for like good 6 years, and then one day he's like, "Oh, you know what? I'm just kind of, yeah, I want to go work for Microsoft. I'm done with this." Right? So no matter how I try to convince him, throwing money at him, he's like, "Look, man, like I've done this for a while. Like it was fun, but now I just want to do something else." So I, as a small business owner, got stuck with a situation where this one individual possessed a tremendous amount of knowledge on my business, right? That is not replaceable within my existing team immediately. So it was actually a pretty serious hit to the business. I would argue, I don't know if I decided to walk away, business probably would have been much better off, right? so if you think about succession, don't just think about succession. Think about how do you create a scalable organization. And the one way to create a scalable organization and create scalable processes that are based on technology, because that allows you to de-risk, to hedge that risk, spread that knowledge across your team, and have a mitigation strategy, whether it's your succession or key employee risk or any of those risk conversations you would have internally. And I totally encourage you to do this, because you don't know what happens in this one day. Everything is great. One day this hits, and you're like, what do I do? Right? So you're scrambling, you're trying to figure out, who do I hire? How do you train this person? All this amount of knowledge that one person possessed in their head is now walked out of the door. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I approach it. And with our company now, we did it completely like the cloud, right? So it's every person is an individual microservice, if you will. They're responsible, they're independent, and anybody leaves, we have shared knowledge. Everything is in the software and the processes. And if I leave or anybody leaves the business continues. So we de-risk that by creating those processes and based on software that helps us kind of move forward and mitigate those risks.
I think that is such an important point. And a lot of times when we are talking about technology, we're talking about it as from an operational standpoint. And very rarely have I heard anyone really address the risk to the business. And when I was a publisher of investment news, the number one thing that kept me up at night was what happens if some of my key team members leave. And that was, and I think that probably a lot of business owners or CEOs think that way. And I think if you can figure out how technology can help alleviate some of that risk, it's a real game changer. So I'm glad that we talked about that. I think that's really, really important. So for those of you that don't know the Big Reveal podcast series, the reason it was created was I wanted to incorporate some personal stories in with thought leadership and practical advice for advisors and the financial services industry as a whole. But it's called the Big Reveal because the last question that I ask is this: what is one thing that you can reveal here today that you haven't shared with anyone publicly? So that's kind of like the secret sauce to the Big Reveal podcast. So Oleg, it's that time in the podcast. What is your big reveal? And by the way, I never know what the big reveals are before my guests tell them, because I honestly want to be surprised.
So, we're talking here. It's a great conversation. I want to share a little bit about how I started. Started in this country, actually. My family came here as refugees from Uzbekistan. I spoke pretty much no English, and we came here, family of 7, with like $5,000, for the whole after we sold everything. Right? So that was the start, right? So as I came to America, land of opportunities, I started looking for a job. And I would go to every single restaurant, McDonald's, you name it, to get a job. I finally scored an interview at McDonald's. It was really exciting. So I'm talking to the manager over there, and
how old were you?
I was 18.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm talking to the manager, and I think I'm talking to the manager, and we're having conversation for me to be like that guy that flips the burgers in the back. Like that's the job description. So we're having a conversation, and he's like, at the end, he's like, I'm not sure we're going to be able to hire you. I'm like, why? And he writes it down, lack of communication skills. So to flip the burgers in the back, I lacked communication skills. So I didn't get the job. I was really upset. And I said to myself, you know what? I really need to work on those communication skills. So that was kind of the big lesson for me, I guess, that lead me later to make a few other decisions that we end up here. So.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, so many leaders in this industry and all over have really interesting beginnings, and the fact that you came to this country speaking almost no English, and you're the CEO of one of the fastest growing private companies in the country is really is a testament to what can be achieved with hard work and dedication and communication skills, it sounds like. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I do think there's a lot of inspiration that goes into learning a little bit more about the personal side of the leaders in our industry. So I can't believe we are at the end of our time and at the podcast. I just want to, again, take this opportunity to say thank you for Invent for being my new partner this year, and hopefully for years to come. I want to thank you, Oleg, for taking the time out of your day to share all things focused on technology, data, and innovation and entrepreneurism with our listeners. And I want to personally say it's great being your friend. We've known each other for a long time, and I really enjoy working with you and now doing this podcast with you. So with that, I want to thank all of you for attending here in person today, for those of you that are listening online, for being a part of the Season 3 kickoff episode with The Big Reveal and with Oleg Tiskevich. So please subscribe to the Big Reveal podcast series so you can be the first to find out who's next to reveal their big reveal. Thanks, everyone, for attending, and goodbye from sunny California.